Count money, man. Stack riches. Try and told him I'm a beast blood.
What's up, gang? Welcome to another episode of the GRINDcast. Get ready. It's a new day, and we got my dog, Dalton Rosta, in the house. And I'm excited to go through his story a little bit today and have an opportunity to interview you, Dalton. And it's been really a pleasure to sit back and watch, even over to just a few years period since I've met you. I remember watching you fight at the casino, outside and hearing about you from people in Youngstown, Sammy Caldrone telling me, man, you gotta meet this kid, you gotta see this kid, and then having a chance to start training with you and watching you pull up in a rusty Trailblazer and watching you right now, man, just signed a huge Bellator contract and driving a nice car, living a nice life, got a nice expensive place to me in Florida, and kind of just starting down the path of living your dreams, man. Just being able to watch it unfold over the last couple of years has been really, really special, man. And anybody that knows Dalton knows that just literally the sky's the limit, and we're just getting started, with you. But I think what's different and unique, man, is there's more to you, Dalton, than even people really know or that you let out. I think people know you're a fighter. They know you're a good fighter. They know you ripped up, you know what I mean, like a model, like an action figure. My son Simon, he plays with these wrestlers, and he all the time he'll pull out this one wrestler and he'll say, you play with your friend, you do, and I pull it out of him. Who's my friend? He says Dalton. So he calls one of the wrestlers Dalton, and they ain't got an ounce of fat on them, all ripped up with a beard, you know what I mean, and stuff like that, Dalton. But there's so much more to your background and how you got to where you're at. Maybe we could open up with some of that stuff. Like, who are you, really, Dalton, besides a fighter? Where did you come from? How were you raised? What was your environment like? And maybe walk us through, what it was like to be Dalton as a child, all the way up till today.
Okay. Well, I grew up in Newcastle, Pennsylvania. I was back and forth a little bit. As you know, we talked about this. I was to Arizona, back to Newcastle, back to Arizona a few times. We'll break that down, get through it a little bit, but probably try to break it down into segments. As a child, I grew up mostly in Newcastle. My dad was in the military at the time. He was in the Army. I was probably 6, 7 years old whenever he first got in the Army. So we were living at home with my mom. My dad was like sending all the money that he was making from the Army back home to pay the bills and everything. And
so you were at home with your mom. Dad was in the Army, sending money home.
Yeah, Operation Iraqi Freedom. He was over there fighting in the war. And so from very, very young age, like, I always just had like one parent in the picture. This is how it started for me. I was never had both parents, never really had a good parental structure, to guide me. And it was always like one parent at a time from this point forward. Like, as I said, he was in the military. He was overseas. I was at home with my mom. As soon as he got back, to try to skim through all the personal stuff. Stuff was going on whenever he was away. He came back. They started to file for a divorce, and they separated. My mom went to Arizona. She dragged all the kids with us. I wanted to stay with my father. She wouldn't let us. She was threatening to take custody, take him for child support, all this other stuff. So she moved us out to Arizona when he was at work one day.
Who's us?
Me and 5 of my sisters. I guess I should go over that. I have 5
siblings.
You
and 5 sisters?
4 sisters, 1 brother. I have 5 siblings.
Okay. So you and all 5 take off to Arizona.
Yes, I'm the second oldest. I have an older sister, 3 years older than me. I have a younger brother, 10 months younger than me. And then 3 younger sisters below that. Mm-hmm. And she took all of us right away to Arizona. She was planning this for probably like about a month while they're working on getting separated. She goes, or while they're working on getting separated, she's planning to leave. So one day whenever she's at work, she just finally got everything together, was building up money over the period of a month, saving it, whatever she was doing, and then, packed us all in the car, all the stuff in the back of the truck, and drove to Arizona. And I was 8 years old at the time. So, like I said, first off, my dad was in the military. He comes back for like a month. Then we're off to Arizona without my dad again. So long story short, spent about 3 years in Arizona with my mom, living in apartments, bouncing around from house to house out there. Finally, she lets me come back and visit my dad during the summer. I take advantage of the opportunity to stay. So I come back for the summer. We're supposed to get on a flight back. I missed the flight, you know.
How old are you?
12 years old.
Okay. And
at this point, she's threatening my dad, trying to take him to court, you know, use custody. She already filed for child support at this point too, and he just said F it, you know. And no, I stayed with him, dealt with all the legal issues and everything. I think she ended up dropping the stuff because it was too much of time and too much on her plate to do it. And so I was living with him.
So what was it, you know, and you don't have to get into too much detail for the sake of time, but, you know, what was it, you know, as a young man that says, you know, out of all of us, I want to go back with my dad. You know, most kids, it's like they want to be with their mom. You know, I spent 6 years, you know, over there with my mom, and it's like, man, at 12, I want to be with my dad. You know, even if we don't have time to get into all the details today, probably, but you know, what was it maybe about your dad that stuck out? That was like, man, this is where I want to be.
I don't know. I always looked up to my dad whenever I was a kid, but on top of that, my mom was a terrible mother. Just telling it how it is, you know. Probably some stuff you should keep out for PR reasons, but she was definitely very abusive, verbally, emotionally, physically. There was one time where she lost her credit card, and I'm 9 years old at the time. My brother's 8, all the way down the line, all our younger sisters and everything. And she starts freaking out, you know, going through the house, beating everybody till she finds a credit card. At the time, I'm in the bathtub taking a hot bath. There's a vacuum cleaner in the bathroom because for whatever reason, there was carpet in this bathroom that we were living in this apartment. And she breaks down the door, like completely busted down because the door's locked. Comes in, takes the cord from the vacuum cleaner and starts whipping me while I'm in the hot bathtub. So there's a lot more that went on. That's just one instance
a snapshot
right there. Yeah. That's one thing I remember that stands out. You know, I was in a hot tub and she beat me with a vacuum cord. Fast forward 10 minutes, she finds the credit card. My little sister, who's 4 years old, who was playing in her little kitchen, her little toy kitchen, was using it for, you know, she was playing waitress or whatever, and she was using the credit card for, you know, as a toy. Mm-hmm. She comes back. She's trying to fix the door to the bathroom. She can't fix it. It's completely busted. She ends up beating my ass again and blames me for the busted door. So I got beat when my sister was using the credit card as a toy, and then on top of that, she broke the door, and then I got blamed for breaking the door, and I got beat again. So that's kind of like a depiction of like how my childhood was growing up. Every time something went wrong, when she was having a bad day, you know,
you were the one getting it.
Not just me, some of the other kids too. Okay. But that's how we grew up, you know. She had a bad day at work. She came in pissed off. Somebody pissed her off. She would beat us. That's how she took out her anger. Mm-hmm. You know, that's how she got stress relief. Mm-hmm. She beat us. And anytime somebody in the house did something wrong, she beat everybody for it. Mm-hmm. You know, and these aren't just normal beatings. You know, there's probably people, you know, 50, 60 years old watching right now like, no, that's discipline. You know, it wasn't discipline. It was abuse, you know. Yep. And the world's a lot more soft today than it was. And there's a lot of people that can't discipline their children because of like child abuse laws and everything. But there's a difference between smacking a kid on the ass, you know, and disciplining them and beating them with a cord while they're sitting in a hot bath.
Right.
You know,
no doubt.
Complete different.
No doubt.
So that kind of, you know.
Well, that explains why you wanted to be with your dad.
Yeah, that motivated me to get there a little bit more, you know. Yep. And then my mom, she's like so like baffled about like why I want to go live with my dad. Yeah. You know, it's like there's no secret to it. It's like she was the type of person, she would do that and then she would feel bad later and try to
make up for it.
Yeah. However, like by being nice to you, trying to hug on you, whatever. Then 2 hours after that, she'd beat you again for something else. Yeah. You know, it was just back and forth, big mood swings. so I'm living with my dad, 12 years old. That point forward, first, you know, at first I probably looked like a troubled child coming back because 2 months in to school in Newcastle, I ended up getting in a fight with a kid at Newcastle.
Of course, you got all this anger. You know what I mean? Big change.
Yeah.
You know.
So this actually wasn't
Were you
my fault.
wrestling at this point?
No, I was not wrestling.
You didn't
at this
start
point,
wrestling
no.
yet?
So I was wrestling whenever I was like 7 years old when I initially lived in Pennsylvania. We
Okay.
moved, didn't have wrestling out there, got out of it.
Okay.
But at this point, it wasn't wrestling. Just this was the winter time. It was like second semester of 6th grade. And there was a kid in one of my classes in 6th grade that always used to try and just pick on me, just always used to try to start shit. And one day we were going back and forth about it, and I was just had enough of it. So instead of ignoring him, I just, you know, started talking shit back. Dude came up to me and like grabbed me by the collar of my shirt, and we ended up in a fight. We both got suspended for 10 days, you know. And then she used that as fuel. She's like, "Oh yeah, this kid's trouble. It's him. It wasn't me," you know.
Yeah.
That was probably the only problem that I had until about like high school, where I got in like another fight in high school again, which I didn't start once again. But you know, just to talk you through what I dealt with whenever I was home, even though I was away from the abusive beatings and the emotional abuse and physical abuse and everything else, my dad was struggling a lot. You know, he was paying $600, $700 in child support for the kids that were out there. Then he had three children here to support. His girlfriend at the time had 3 children, you know, so he had his bills, his expenses were high, and he wasn't making that much money. You know, he was the type of person that wore the same 2 pairs of clothes every single day. You know, one day he'd wear this, next day he'd wear the next one, and then he'd recycle. You know, he was that type of person just so he could provide for everybody else. But you know, I didn't have a good upbringing. You know, we were on food stamps. There's points where the washer and dryer broke, and he was washing our clothes in the bathtub, you know, and then hang drying them. We were eating ramen noodles all the time, and tomato soup with grilled cheese. You know, that's what I ate growing up a lot. On top of that, you know, in high school, it got worse, you know. His girlfriend at the time ended up like having like an injury with her lower back. She was unemployed, so he was footing all the bills completely. And it got to the point where I couldn't even buy new shoes for school, you know, and I was getting made fun of for wearing the same old shoes from the prior year. And they were all run down and beat up, falling apart, you know. And you know how high school is, you get picked on for that shit. And you know, that's kind of the stuff I dealt with. And just from that point forward, like my dad, because he didn't want me to end up like he was, you know, where he has to work for a living and live paycheck to paycheck. So he was like beating it in my head, like grades. Make sure your grades are as good as they possibly can be, you know, do all your homework, study, you know. And I wasn't the smartest kid growing up. And he probably knew that, you know, but the thing was I put the effort. I put the effort in though, you know. It wasn't just a natural intellect.
You know my nickname. You know.
Yeah,
tell them one.
Doctor.
I mean, I got a lot of nicknames for you.
One of them's Doctor.
Dr. Rosta.
Yeah.
Smart.
But part of that comes from, you know, me learning on my own, me doing the research. You know, because some people naturally just get things, you know, whether it's sports, whether it's math, whether it's reading, writing, whatever. I was never that person, you know. I always had to put in the extra work, do the extra stuff.
Yep.
And my grades, my GPA, all that was a result of, you know, motivation or discipline.
So you end up getting good grades?
Yeah, I ended up getting like a 4.0. I graduated high school with a 4.7. We'll talk
4.7.
Yeah.
Okay, doctor.
But that was all, like I said,
Work. All work.
Yeah, I was doing all the extra shit, you know, doing all my homework, make sure I was studying a lot. You know, I wasn't cramming my studying. I was.
When did you start wrestling?
I started wrestling again my freshman year.
Freshman year of high school. Yeah. And I remember you saying your dad would drive you back and forth to different places. Yeah. Also, were you boxing or doing something else? There was some type of stand-up.
I wasn't boxing yet. I started boxing whenever I was in 6th grade.
Okay.
12 years old, because we didn't have wrestling back then, so he put me in boxing.
Okay.
That was for like a year. Then he did the jiu-jitsu. That was for like a year. Then high school came around, and then
got into wrestling.
Yep. But this is where I was bouncing back and forth to Arizona. I didn't want to go live back with my mom, but I had to because there was no wrestling at Newcastle. We couldn't get into Laurel.
What a commitment.
So I went back to Arizona just for a semester to wrestle.
In high school?
Yep.
You would go back there and wrestle and come back here
and then
and go to school.
Then I came back to Newcastle sophomore year, first semester. Same thing, but this time we thought we were going to be able to get in the Laurel to wrestle. My dad wasn't able to afford anything, out in Laurel, so had to do it again, So I went out to wrestle again my sophomore year. Then came back junior year. This time, we actually were able to get in the Laurel School District. So I started wrestling then. Fast forward past that, he, whenever I started wrestling at Laurel, he was driving me, even sophomore year, freshman year, he was driving me to Reynolds High School, which is one of the best high schools for wrestling in the whole entire state. They were AA at the time. I don't know what the divisions and stuff are now, but they had some of the best wrestling. They were 45 minutes to an hour away. He was driving me there. He was driving me to Boardman. He was driving me to DuBois to wrestle with a kid named Tom Slay, who was like the third in the state at the time, but he was undefeated. He was ranked in the country. He was driving me to Pitt to wrestle with like Pittsburgh wrestlers, college wrestlers, sending me to these wrestling camps and stuff that he didn't have money for, He was literally using every bit of money that he had to send me to them, and he was sacrificing a lot himself, time, driving. He'd get off work. He'd work 5 a.m. to 5 p.m., get off work. As soon as he gets off work, he's taking me to DuBois, driving 2 hours, hour and a half to DuBois, and watching me wrestle for an hour and a half, 2 hours, then driving me an hour and a half back, not getting back till 10, 11 p.m.
Yep.
Then by the time he gets to sleep, midnight, he's waking up at 4, getting ready to go to work. He's on 4 hours of sleep. His time that he spending outside of work, he's driving me all over the place just to wrestle, just to get better.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And then the money he's making from work, he's using to put in his gas tank, to send me to these wrestling camps over the summer to make me get better.
Yep.
Because my goal was to be a state champion. Didn't happen. Injury barred that.
Injuries. Yep.
Yeah. So
then you end up you went to Youngstown.
I went to Seton Hill first.
Seton Hill first. Okay.
I got a scholarship still to wrestle, even though I got injured both my junior and senior year. I was undefeated both years before, postseasons.
Okay.
My senior year, I was trying to wrestle through injuries. My junior year, I couldn't wrestle whatsoever. I tore my knee completely, had to have surgery. And
so you had a scholarship to Seton Hill.
Had scholarship to Seton Hill.
Went to Seton Hill.
Went to Seton Hill for...
What made you go to YSU?
So I had a falling out with the coach at Seton Hill. I was wrestling there. I was doing well. I was like 23-4 on the season. I started having problems with my knee again. It was my opposite knee this time. I did my left in high school, my right in college. And it was to the point where I couldn't shoot at practice. It was unstable when I was in my stance. Somebody shot on me. I tried sprawling. It would feel like it was loose and about to give out. Running always hurt really bad. So I was going to see the athletic trainer. He was letting me go do that. I was doing physical therapy there, but it wasn't getting any better. Honestly, it was getting worse. And so I wanted to see a doctor. So you have to get approved by the coach and then approved by the athletic director to go see a doctor through the university. So it's a process in college. At least there it was. And eventually, the athletic trainer's like, he got to see a doctor. This isn't getting any better. So the coach approved it. He set up the appointment. The appointment's supposed to be at 7 a.m. on a Wednesday. So they called me at 6:45 that morning, maybe 6:30. Left me a voicemail. I didn't answer it. Left me a voicemail. I was like, hey, Dalton, just wanted to let you know that the doctor's out sick today, or family emergency. I forget exactly what the excuse was. All I remember is that he was out for the day and they had to reschedule the appointment. And so I didn't go to the doctor. I walked into wrestling practice that day because he had me riding the bike and doing the ropes for conditioning to stay in shape. And he's like, why didn't you go to your doctor's appointment today? And I'm like, because they canceled. He was like, yeah, they canceled because you missed it, because you didn't show up. And I was like, Coach, no, they didn't. They called me beforehand. He's like, no, they didn't. He's like, they called you after and rescheduled it because you missed it. And I was like, Coach, I have the voicemail on my phone and I have the timestamp next to the voicemail. Can I go get, because we had to keep our phones in the locker. I was like, do you mind if I go get my phone? I can show you.
Yeah.
He's like, go get it. And he's super pissed off at the time. So I run all the way downstairs. We're practicing this old gym at Seton Hill. It's all the way at the top of the building. It's an old basketball gym, probably from the 1900s. Yep. And I have to run all the way down to locker rooms 3 floors down. I get it, come back up. I let him listen to it. He listens to it. I show him the timestamp. He doesn't say one word. He has the straightest look on his face, no expression,
No
nothing.
apology.
No apology,
nothing,
nothing. Didn't even say nothing. Just
ego.
just a blank look on his face.
Yep.
Blank look, straight face, no expression, no emotion, nothing.
Yep.
I didn't even get he didn't even tell me to just go work out, nothing. He just nothing. Wouldn't even talk to me after he listened to the message. It's like, all right. So I was talking to Lewandowski. He was like, what do you want me to do? He's like, jump on the bike. And about 2 weeks later, the semester's about to end, PSAC's coming up. I had to sit out PSACs, which is one of the biggest tournaments of the year.
Yep.
For Division II, at least where we're at. And I ended up deciding to transfer. Me and my dad were talking about it. We're like, this isn't good for me. I wanted to transfer to wrestle, but after talking,
do they have wrestling at YSU?
No.
Yeah, I didn't think so. So then you went to YSU,
played football,
played football.
got injured again. So the knee I was having issues with ended up
Same
having
stuff.
surgery.
Kept nagging.
Yeah, so I ended up having surgery on it. So
At what point did you say, I'm going to transfer my thoughts from wrestling and football into wanting to fight?
So when I was growing up, I always wanted to either fight or play football as a professional. I wanted to be a professional fighter,
At what age do you remember having these thoughts?
It was when I was growing up. It was football first. 7 years old. As soon as I started playing football, I was every kid.
When did you want to be a professional fighter?
So like I said, football was probably
Earliest
7
you
years
can
old.
remember.
10 maybe for fighting. We were watching UFC fights. I remember. No, maybe it was actually maybe 11.
Okay.
Going on 12.
Okay.
Because I just started boxing and we went to one of our teammates' house to watch the UFC fights, and I remember just getting hooked right away.
Okay.
And I was like, I want to be either a football player or a UFC fighter. At the time, I was probably thinking to myself, I'm gonna do both. I'm gonna be both at the same time.
Right. Right.
Thinking that you could
Bo
actually
Jackson.
do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you can't do that shit.
Yep.
Long story short, ended up being an MMA fighter. But
right out of college, right out of football, did you transfer right into training for MMA?
there was probably a couple month gap in there.
How old
I was 19, maybe turning 20.
when you started?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So this is right around the time where I'm living on campus at YSU at the time.
Okay.
You know, and the tuition, everything goes up the following year. I end up having to move out. But in that process, after I get done playing football, because I injured my knee, I ended up having surgery on the knee that I was having a problem with at YSU. And 2 months in between there, you know, I was probably just lifting weights, you know, just living a normal life. And I was like, I can't do this, you know. It's like I need to do something. And I started going back to jiu-jitsu at Mike Demko's. In this process, probably at semester ends, and my dad ends up getting in a motorcycle accident. And this is when I just started training MMA again, I remember. And he was in the hospital. I remember showing up to the hospital. I was the first one there. And then me and my dad were actually fighting at the time. A lot of people don't know this. We were arguing. We got in a really bad argument at the house, and I actually went to like live with one of my friends, like hang out and stay at one of my friends' house for a couple weeks, you know, just let things cool off. And then that happened, and so I ended up being the first one there. I was like the last one to find out because nobody wanted to tell me because they knew me and my dad were fighting, and I ended up being the first one there, and. Then everybody, like whenever I showed up there, I remember his girlfriend was there and she was like super pissed. We you know, we hash shit out now. We're cool now. But at the time, she was mad at me and she was like trying to get me kicked out of the hospital. If she's watching this, she'll probably get a laugh out of it because I know she remembers that. She was trying really hard. It was pretty petty. And long story short, everybody else went back and my dad was like asking for me to come back, you know. And then, so I came back, and it was just me and my dad in the room, and he wanted to, like, you know, squash the beef and everything right there. And we did. And probably 2 weeks went by, and he was doing well. You know, he had, like, 5-6 surgeries, and then he ended up passing away. He had complications after, like, the 6th or 7th one, whichever one it was. And they had him on, like, life support and all this other stuff on oxygen and put him on dialysis, and everything was failing. He ended up passing away. So after that, fast forward into like the
20 years old?
Yeah.
So 20 years old, you got really no huge relationship with your mom.
I'm not talking to her at all. And then
closest person really to you is your dad. you know, and he passes away. So 20 years old, probably feeling a little me against the world. I'm alone, I would imagine. Not a huge relationship with your siblings.
No, I wouldn't say that. I never had that attitude because I've always had a lot of friends around me that they've done stuff for me or their families have. You know, I've been really fortunate to have really good friends that have had really good families that treated me like family. You know what I mean? I had a lot of people help me along the way, you know? So whether they let me stay at their house, whether they lend me some money whenever I needed it, when I was behind on bills or something, because after, just to expand a little bit on my upbringing, after my dad passed away, I went from living on my own to living with an aunt, to living on my own again, to living with my Nana, to living with a friend, to living on my own. I was bouncing back and forth. There was like no stability, you know, and the only reason I kept moving back in with my aunt and then my Nana and then a friend is because I wasn't able to make the bills anymore. You know, I was working, so I was going to school full time.
And you graduated.
Yeah, 18 credit hours. I was training 2 to 3 times a day. Training was the most important thing to me. Everybody's like, oh, you need college for plan B, plan B this, plan B that. You know, plan B to me is for losers. But the only reason I went is because I already started. I was already halfway through, and I know my dad would have wanted me to get my degree. So it's the only reason why I finished. But
what did you get your degree in?
Finance. Finance with a minor in accounting.
With a 4.7?
No, that was high school.
Okay.
College, I graduated with 3.8.
Okay.
3.8.
Solid.
So, where was I at?
So basically, you're transferring in. You know, people are helping you out, and now you're starting to transfer into 2-3 hours a day, 2-3 sessions a day.
Yeah. So
putting it all into
training
the
was
priority
the most important thing
of MMA.
Yeah, training was the most important thing to me. I was probably run down, you know, underslept, overtrained, but I was trained 2 to 3 times a day.
When did you take your first fight?
I actually just got a memory on my Facebook. It was 5 years ago. Yesterday?
Okay.
5 years ago. Yesterday was my first fight.
Okay.
So I've been at this for 5 years. That was my first amateur fight.
Yep.
So I've been at this for 5 years, and like I said, training was the most important thing to me because I knew at that point I was done with football. I knew what I wanted to do was become a professional fighter.
So you went all in.
I went all in.
Said this is what I want to make my job.
Yeah.
And now it's your job.
Mm-hmm. And there was a lot of struggle that was involved with that. You know, it was like I said, 2 to 3 times a day, and
driving all over the place.
All over the place, going to Mat Factory in Lower Borough, and I was going to school in Youngstown. Then I was going to boxing in Youngstown. I was going to jiu-jitsu in Hermitage at Monarch. I was going down to Pittsburgh to Common Worthy's gym. At the time, it might have been Mark Cherico's doing some sparring. Going to Cleveland, Strong Style. You set me up there. To get some sparring and stuff up there. I was all over the place because back here, you know, there wasn't much.
So those are some things that people don't see.
Yeah.
You know, right there. You see, oh, man, because 5 years, I mean, you've accomplished a lot in 5 years, man. But the people want it, but how many people are willing to drive and want it that bad? What would you say?
Listen. The thing is a lot of people who want it, it's easy to do the training, you know. If you love what you're doing, it's easy to do the training. So it was easy for me to go to practice. Driving, yeah, it sucked. Being in a car, if you're training 2 to 3 times a day, sometimes I'm in the car for 6-7 hours, you know, because an hour and a half there, hour and a half back, there's 3. Do that twice a day, there's 6. You're going to another gym for a third session, maybe it's 30 minutes away, 7, you know. It's easy to go and do the training. The driving to and from and all over the place made it worse. On top of that, like I said, what I was saying with the struggle is I was still going to school doing 18 credit hours, and I was working as much as I possibly could, probably 30 hours a week, and I was probably getting 4 to 5 hours of sleep every night. You know, underslept, overtrained, training 2-3 times a day, working as much as I can to pay my bills. There was a lot of times that I didn't have enough money. Like if I paid my bills, I didn't have enough money to put gas in my car to go to YSU. So I was trying to find a ride with somebody that was from Newcastle that was commuting to YSU. Or there was times where I wasn't able to pay my bills, so I was a month behind on my bills, and I needed gas in my car to get to practice and get to school. So I prioritized that and ended up moving in with somebody for a couple of weeks or a couple months, you know what I mean? Until I got back under my feet, and then went and did the same thing over again. You know, it got to the point where I couldn't even pay for food. I was working a full-time job during the summer when school wasn't around, and training still 2 to 3 times a day, plus working security.
What's the toughest part of your job now?
That's like trying to find a needle in a haystack, bro. Everything about it's tough. You know, you go to practice. The cardio is super intensive. You got wrestling, you got jiu-jitsu, you got kickboxing, boxing, everything. You know, all these different martial arts that you have to learn at once. But you have to constantly improve on all 4 of them. You only have so much time in the day. On top of that, you're getting punched in the face. On top of that, you know, you get to these points where you go to these dark places where you don't think you have anything left in you at practice, and you still have somebody in your face, punching you in the face, taking you down, whatever, grinding you out. You know, you might have went 3 rounds with one person, now you have a fresh person in on you. You know, there's places that in this sport that you go that you don't go in other sports. You have the weight cutting, you know, you have the constant day-to-day, like training 2 to 3 times a day, every day, and your body's beat up. You go through injuries, your shins are banged up, your elbows, your forearms. Maybe you had another knee injury or whatever. It's just plus you don't get a paycheck unless you fight. You know, you get injured and you're out for a year.
Speaking of paychecks, you just signed a new deal with Bellator.
Yeah. 4 fights, 18 months. So
4 fights, 18 months.
4 fights, 18 months, and
they giving you any money?
Yeah, it's a lot more money than what I was getting.
Come a long way.
So
come a long way from struggling, needing to ride to Youngstown State.
Yeah,
they're paying you a lot of money for these fights, dog.
Yeah, so I went from. I just want to back up a little bit to the college thing. Right before I graduated, I even got to the point where I was swiping protein bars at Walmart, you know, because I didn't have any money to eat. I didn't have money for food, you know.
So these are things that nobody knows about you. Yes. I'm learning still things that I didn't know.
Yeah, I was doing that. I was, you know, trying to find ways to just put gas in my car just to go to practice. You've seen the car I was driving. Yep. You know, there was constantly problems with it. You know, I didn't have money to fix the gas line or, you know, the power steering
And you're driving all over.
Yeah, all over. It was rusted out. You know, there was rattling noises coming from it, which ended up being an emergency brake. The freaking spare tire on the back is like hanging down because the thing's rusted out. You can't put it up. You know, I was struggling a lot. And then I graduated college, you know, and I got a job at first, and right after I got the job, I got offered my professional contract with Bellator. So at this point, I'm working a job where you can make a lot of money, you know, but then this contract gets put right in front of my face, you know, right on the table, right in front of me. There's a pen in my hand, and I'm only getting paid $4,000 guaranteed to show. You know, but it's like, all right, this is your chance. You know, if you take the leap of faith right now, that 4,000 can turn into 6 figures. You know what I mean? And at the time, I had so many people telling me, you know, I'm telling them how much I'm making. They're like, you can't make a living off that. You know, they're like, why don't you work and do that? It's like, well, I want to be all in on this because I know if I take the chance right now and I go all in and I dedicate myself to this, it's going to pay off in the end, and I'm not going to have to worry about
here's
working.
The things that stand out to me that apply to business, entrepreneurship, or those out there that feel like that they want to fight, that people go through these struggles to where you're broke in the process, that you're not making a ton of money, and you got to be able to believe, and you got to give up something of value to gain more things of value. There was a turning point of, man, do I sign a contract for $4,000, or do I finally, you know, go alleviate this pressure? Do I chase my dream and while people are telling me that I'm crazy, or do I go all in? You know, you've mentioned many times, you know, it's not a plan B, like all in. You got to go all in. You got to make sacrifices. You got to be able to block out the noise of safety and security from others to go ahead and bet on yourself. And that's what you did. Did you ever think that you would be in this situation already to where you're signing a contract that you just signed?
Yeah, I thought I would. I believed in myself, you know, and that's the part of the reason why I took that leap of faith and took that contract for only a guaranteed $4,000 for my first fight.
Yep.
I was leaving a job where you could possibly make 6 figures, you know, and people were thinking I'm crazy, you know, especially because I grew up struggling as a kid. Then I grew up struggling in high school. Then I grew up struggling on my own again in college. Like I just told you, I was stealing freaking protein bars just to eat. I literally you know how many times I overdrafted on my freaking account where I was putting gas. You know, I knew I had $2 in my account, but I put $20 in my gas tank.
Gas up.
Yeah. Because once you have $2 in your account, it accepts it at the pump, but you know you're gonna overdraft. You know, I had to pay that shit back later. I did all this shit, and you figure whenever I get that contract offered to me, but I'm working a job where I can make 6 figures, I'm gonna take the 6 figures. No, that wasn't me, because I had a goal, I had a dream, and I believed in myself. I wanted to take the leap of faith, and I knew if I put the work in and I actually believed in myself, then it would pay off later.
Now that you've trained with some of the best fighters in the world, at American Top Team and around, what would you say are some of the traits that stick out from the greats? You know, what separates, you know, people from the top tier level that you've seen? Does anything stand out?
I think what the people do inside and outside the gym. You know, a lot of people, whenever they look at somebody that's dedicated or that works hard, they always think about what they're doing in the gym. They see them come in, they see them like going balls to the wall for practice for an hour, you know, an hour and a half. They're like, man, that's a hard worker. You know, they might even see him going in there 2, sometimes 3 times a day. They're like, man, that's a hard worker. He's disciplined. That's not all it takes in this sport. You know, what are you doing outside? Are you getting the proper rest? You know, are you getting 8 to 9 hours a night? Because that's important whenever your body's, when your job's physically demanding. You know what I mean? You can run on fumes with a lot of other stuff. You know, with
not
fighting,
just discipline while you're working.
Yeah.
Discipline in your personal life when you're not working. Outside things are going to show symptoms in your inside.
Yep. You have, like I said, sleep, your diet, supplements, you know, and then drinking, smoking, partying, you know, all those things are going to add up, you know. So you're eating bad, you're underslept,
which is something that you those inches, you know, you don't do. You don't drink, you don't smoke.
No, I've never drank or never smoked in my entire life. Never did any drugs. I'm 26 years old. I went through college, all 4 years in college, you know.
How do you do that? I mean, how do you pull that off? You know, most young people going to college, and it wasn't like you were just raised around, you know, a perfect situation. Like, how do you just say, I'm not going to drink, I'm not going to smoke?
So my dad never had beer in the house. You know, I never seen him drink. You know, people told me that he drank and stuff. Whenever I hear stories now, you know how people come out the woodwork and be like, I remember your dad did this, your dad did that after he passed away. So I hear the stories and stuff now, but the thing is he was a good role model in the aspect that he never did it in the house. He never did it in front of me, you know, and then he never told me that I couldn't. You know, there's a lot of parents out there that try to, you know, control their kids too much, and their kids rebel. You know, my dad never told me I couldn't do anything. He never told me I couldn't smoke. He never told me I couldn't drink.
So
he never told me I couldn't hang out with certain people.
Not want to?
Just the fact that he never did it, for one, and two, he knew how invested I was in the sports. I knew how invested I was in the sports, and we just always used to talk about, like, just simple conversations when it was just me and him, like, what can we do
to get an edge?
To get an edge, you know. And we were talking about supplements, you know. Will creatine help, you know? Will me doing an extra workout a day help? Will me going to the House of Speed to work on my 40-yard dash time help?
Yep.
You know, what else will help?
How can you get an edge?
Think outside the box, you know?
What traps have you seen fighters fall into? Like the common traps?
The partying, you know?
Too much partying.
They get a little bit of fame.
Same here in business, dog.
Yeah. They get a little bit of fame. They get a little bit of money. You know, right away, what they want to do is they want to go get girls. They want to party. They want to drink. They want to have a good time. They want to live the lavish life. You know, they want to look, especially nowadays for social media, they want to look like they're living that life. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And that's a rabbit hole that they dig themselves into. And they, sooner or later, they can't get themselves out. You know what I mean? Whether they become addicted to the drugs or whether they run out of money. You know, one or the other. Some comes first. Sometimes it's death. Sometimes it's jail. And you see a lot of fighters go through that, you know, and it's unfortunate. You know, I've seen good people experience some bad situations and end up in some bad spots when there's some good people, you know. They probably shouldn't have ended up in that spot, but they got involved with the wrong people or started doing the wrong things. And it's very unfortunate. After
your last win, you know, when I came out there to Arizona to watch you, I was coming off a tournament, and I was looking forward to celebrating your win with you. And you know, I tried to compete with you with after your win, we went out and just ate as much food as we could possibly as we could possibly eat.
I didn't know you were competing with me.
Oh yeah. I was trying to keep up with you with the eating. I think we ate the most at the table. What would your go-to cheat meal be, or go-to celebration meal be? What does that look like for you after a win?
I mean,
first thing you're going to
an Italian restaurant. It's every time.
Okay.
Remember, you came to
Carb
the
up.
one you came to the one in Connecticut too. Remember, we went to
Yep.
I forget what it was called. It was in the Mohegan Sun. There was an Italian restaurant there.
Yep.
Same thing. I always get chicken parm, pasta, get some ice cream, some desserts or whatever after. That's my go-to every time. I love pizza too. If they have pizza there, get that as appetizer. That's a plus. Then for the next week,
You're carbing up.
yeah, next
you're
week
going
I just
Italian.
I go all
For the
all
next
out.
week, you're going ham.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Burgers, fries, appetizers, wings, pizza,
You still on the Red Bulls, the
blueberry Red Bulls.
blueberry Red Bulls, or have you moved on from the blueberry?
Nah, I
Red
moved
Bulls?
on from those, but people
Okay.
still tag me in their stories. They'll get one. They'll still tag me.
Okay, they still think of you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
What tips do you have for weight cuts, man? I know, for me, when I was cutting weight recently, I mean, I was blowing you up, for like a month, and you're good at it. I mean, everything you told me to do worked. What tips do you have for people that are cutting weight?
yeah, I mean, the biggest thing would be to get as lean as possible before you actually start to cut. What you do outside of the fight camp matters. You want to stay as close to fight weight as possible. You don't want to be always tracking your calories, always, watching what you're eating. You want to enjoy life a little bit, but you don't want to go wild. After my fights, I give myself a week, 2 weeks, and then I start getting back to normal. You know what I mean? Where I have 2, maybe 3 cheat meals, not days, a week.
A week.
And then whenever I start phasing out of that, I'll do 2, and that's what I normally do. 2 cheat meals a week outside of camp, then during camp, 1 cheat meal. But I would get as lean as possible. Then I sent you an app where you can track your calories and everything. Me personally, I like to eat 2,200 calories a day during camp the whole entire time. I lose a little bit of weight each week. It's not too much. You don't want to strain yourself. You don't want to burn yourself out from dieting, weight cutting, whatever. You still want life to be enjoyable. So I try to keep it like 2,200, something that's I'm small deficit, but I can't tell. I'm
Yep.
still getting full.
2,200, and you're still training a couple
Yep,
times a day.
Still training a couple times. I'm probably burning 3,000 at least a day on average. And so it puts me at about 800 calorie deficit. If I'm a little bit more hungry, I'll eat more. I'll eat up to 2,800 calories a day, And I just do that gradually over time, over the course of the 8-10 weeks of the fight camp. And then the last couple weeks is when I really start cutting the calories decently hard. The last week is when I put myself, if I'm still pretty heavy, I put myself maybe in a 500 to 1,000 calorie deficit at most. And that's just for the fight week, 5 days before the fight, not a whole 7 days, 5 days. And then that's when you start implementing the water loading. At this point, you should be decently close to weight, no more than 15 pounds over, and that's if you're heavy. And this is for MMA fights. If it's same day weigh-ins, you don't want to be any more than 5 pounds over, if you're fighting the same day as the weigh-ins. Then at this point, I'll start implementing the water loading, where you start taking in more water, 2 gallons a day at first.
For 5 days?
Yeah, for 5 days. Then you start, as the days start going down, you start cutting them down. 2 days before, you cut it down to a gallon. The day before or day of, depending on same day weigh-ins or day before weigh-ins, I would do a half gallon, So you're still hydrated for the first part of the day. You want to stay as dry as you want to be dry for the least amount of time possible. So me, no longer than 12 hours. And I still eat up until that point, because you still want to, get insulin in your body. You still want the carb. You still want energy, and you don't want to low blood sugar. You don't want to crash. You don't want to faint, pass out, all these other things. So you still need to eat. If you're doing everything properly, you should be eating the whole way through. You should be drinking the whole way through to the last 12 hours. Other things that help, dandelion root, diuretics, such as caffeine and stuff like that. But I take caffeine. The week of, I'll usually double my intake, just because it helps with fat burning. It helps with burning calories. It helps push some water out too. It's a diuretic. And you don't want to take the other diuretics, such as dandelion root, unless absolutely necessary. You're holding on to a little bit of extra weight, then you take the dandelion root, but that's last resort. You don't have to do that if you're getting down. Like we talked about this.
Yep.
And,
I didn't end up needing it.
Yeah. So if you don't need it, you don't want to take it, because you could keep pissing out the water and pushing out the waters even after the fact if you rehydrate.
I tried it out one day early and you know, like a week before, and it works.
Yeah, and then,
I said, "Oh my God, you didn't prepare me for this, my God."
Yeah,
I
and
was ready.
The last thing for weight cutting is when you get close to weigh-ins, like the day before, what you eat, you still want calories. You know what I mean? So you still want to be in a little bit of a calorie deficit, but you still want the calories for the energy to keep your blood sugar up. So you want high calorie dense foods that are low in weight. So like I told you, a good go-to for me,
it's a metrics bar.
You know, if I'm really cutting it
400
close on weight,
calories,
and it's
but
3 ounces, 3.5
yeah, low in
ounces,
weight.
you know.
Yep.
So the way your body works, it takes hours and hours and hours to digest food. Sometimes your body holds on to it longer. You know what I mean? Especially if you slow down your digestive tract, if you're taking apple cider vinegar, if you're not eating a lot of fiber, other things. So if you eat these lighter foods closer to weigh-ins, when the diuretics are pushing the rest of the food and stuff out of your body, the only thing that's weighing you down inside your body is the low weight foods that you ate. So if you eat 3-4 ounce meals over the course of the day before weigh-ins, then that's only 12 ounces. It's only a pound. You know what I mean? You're going to push some of that out. You know, anything that's left sitting in there isn't going to affect your weight on the scale. That's the biggest thing. So a lot of people, they'll eat 2 pounds worth of food the day before. You know what I mean? 3 pounds worth of food for the cumulative for the whole day. That's 3 pounds of food you're putting in your body. You know what I mean? And your body's not necessarily going to push that out.
Push it all out. Yeah.
So calorie wise, if you're looking for the long term weight loss, the calories are going to matter. But short term weight loss and
day before, day of.
You did everything right up until this point. So that's not going to matter in the grand scheme of things whenever you have a short period to make weight. So now you have to adjust the weight of the actual food.
Meals.
Yeah.
Or bar or whatever.
And then on top of that, lastly, I like to use a sauna suit, especially if I'm not using it for my whole weight cut. I'll use it for the first 15-20 minutes to get a good sweat going, get my body heated up, get my body core temperature up. So I'm constantly burning calories and constantly like getting a sweat going. You take that off, you maybe throw some sweats over it to replace it. Then you're still losing water. Maybe you take the sweats off and you're just working out in shorts and a t-shirt, but your body temperature is already like skyrocketed from the sauna suit. You're still sweating. You go in the sauna, you get the rest of it off. Whatever. It's a weight cut for me to lose 10 pounds takes an hour. You know, I sweat more than some other people. You know, some people hold on. You have to know your own body. You have to experiment with it first. But I mean, there's no reason that anybody, depending on their body weight, because body weight matters too. The bigger you are, usually, and the leaner you are, because how lean you are matters. You know, the more muscle you carry, the more water you can push out. So 10 pounds for me is easy. You know, somebody that's 160 pounds, it might be more 7-8 pounds, you know, in an hour. But there's no reason nobody can't cut at least 5 pounds in an hour. You know,
switching gears. What can you name a couple people that have made a big difference, you know, on your life and what you learned from those people? A couple people that stand out to you of like, man, I grabbed this from this person, I grabbed this from this person, that has impacted you, and what did you learn from those people?
I would say the first person is my dad. You know, the do's and the don'ts, you know, like we were speaking about how I never drank or smoked or did any drugs or anything like that. Big reason was from him. You know, he was a good role model. We were always talking about what I can get the edge in. And then there's things that I learned not to do based on what he did, where I like saw it affect his life. You know what I mean? Don't have kids early before you're ready to, you know, be smart about your money. You don't want to live paycheck to paycheck, invest, you know, other things like that. Going on from that, you know, in the world of MMA, wrestling, whatever, I learned a lot from Isaac, you know, my coach at the Mat Factory. I'm currently an American Top Team, but, you know, I always have Isaac in my corner for my fights and everything. You know, he's helped me out a lot over the years, not just with jiu-jitsu and wrestling, but he's always been there, someone to talk to for me. You know, he's a wealth of knowledge, not just for wrestling or jiu-jitsu, but he has a lot of wisdom, you know. He's helped me he's a chiropractor. He's helped me with my body care and everything else. And, I don't know, I couldn't be more thankful for him, honestly.
Yep.
I wouldn't be where I was without him.
Yep.
And I would say another person would be you. You know, don't want to toot your horn or anything on your own podcast, but I've learned a lot from you, man. Whenever it comes to business, for one. 2, investing. 3, networking, you know, meeting new people. 4, you've always helped me out whenever I needed it, you know, whether it be financially or, you know, just giving me advice, always pointing me in the right direction. Yeah, man, I can go on, and I can name more people, but off the top of my head, you 3.
Right on. I'm grateful you edged me over there to the Mat Factory. Also, man, you've given, you know, back to me also, man. I've learned off of you and have grown off of you, man. It's been a pleasure. What 2 words, you know, stand out to you if I had to say, all right, you know, above your head, you know, what you represent, you could only pick 2 words. This is what I feel strongly about, you know, for me. You know, these are the 2 words. What would be your 2 words that you feel strongly about, passionately about, that embodies what you believe?
Discipline and self-belief. Discipline, obviously, doing the things that you're supposed to do, not necessarily that you want to do. Big thing, like I said, is I've said it 3 times.
To be great,
already.
you got to be able to do things you don't feel like doing.
Yeah, and I mean, having the discipline of doing the right things outside of training, like I said, you know, not smoking, not drinking, not partying, dieting right, resting right, recovery, doing all the things for your body, massage, you know, physical therapy, cryotherapy, chiropractic work, all that. You have to have the discipline to rest when your body needs rest. You know, you can't constantly run your body into the ground. A big part of it is rest. So you need to have the discipline to go to bed on time, to take a day off whenever you need it. You have the discipline to go to practice when you don't feel like it, you know, because there's going to be those days. Same thing goes with work. Same thing with you're in the life insurance agency.
Yep.
You're in business.
100%.
There's probably so many people that work for you that don't, you know, they're like, I don't feel like making a call right now. You know, they're like, I just need a 10-minute break. Need a 20-minute break. Maybe today I'll only do 20 calls instead of 50. You know, I don't know what you guys' quota is for how many calls you got to make for a day.
Yeah.
But, you know, maybe they want to just take a nice, easy day. That's not discipline. You know what I mean? You have to have the discipline to do it every single day, no matter how tedious it is.
Yep.
And the other one
self-belief.
Other one being self-belief, because I was thinking
can't wait
patience.
on other people to believe in you.
Yeah, I was thinking patience earlier, but self-belief kind of ties into patience, because you have to believe in the process. You have to believe in yourself that even though it isn't, you might not necessarily be there right now, that through your hard work and through your discipline, and it ties into discipline, the things that you're doing right.
That's where you
every
get so much
day.
belief in yourself, from the discipline that you apply.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because if you aren't doing all that stuff correctly, how are you going to walk to the cage? How are you going to be on a call, you know, and have the belief in yourself or the confidence in yourself to actually
knowing you
close.
didn't go all in. You
You
didn't put everything into the process.
And like I said, and if you don't believe in yourself, who else is? You know what I
Amen.
mean? You can't have somebody else believe in yourself when you don't
Amen.
believe in yourself.
Amen.
You know?
What would somebody be able to do to follow, you know, your journey, you know, coming up on the next 18-month contract with Bellator, currently ranked, what are you, 6 or 7?
Ranked 7th.
7th in the world in Bellator currently right now. I'd imagine, you know, you handle your business at some point, you're going to probably end up with a shot here in a title fight in an 18-month span. I'd be shocked.
Mm-hmm.
How would somebody follow you? How would somebody get a hold of you, you know, on social media and stuff like that?
The easiest way, I'm active on all social media, but the easiest way is Instagram. You know, I think that's the most popular platform nowadays anyways. But my Instagram's Dalton Rosta, at Dalton Rosta.
Dalton Rosta?
Yeah.
Or at Dalton Rosta?
At Dalton Rosta.
DALTON?
ROSTA.
Okay.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, watch my fights, Bellator app. If it's on the prelims, Showtime. If it's on the main card.
Let's get behind him. Get on the Hercules train. You know, right now, 6-0 currently in Bellator, undefeated as an amateur, undefeated as a pro, and representing Newcastle, Western Pennsylvania, YSU Penguins, and belief that you could come from anything and really not have a ton of parental support at 20 years old, and find a way to make it on your own. If you believe in yourself, if you got discipline, if you're willing to put in the work, you can make your dreams a reality, man. And you're proof. You're proof of that. So thanks for joining us, man. Appreciate you coming on to the GRINDcast.
Yeah, thank you for having me on,
my
bro.
dog. Let's get it. Let's get it. Thanks for joining us on another episode of the GRINDcast. Get ready. It's a new day.